Delta State government has said it spent the sum of 130 billion naira on payment of debts by the end of March 2024. It said the payments were out of the sum of 465 billion naira debt and inherited from previous administrations in the state. Executive Assistant to the State Governor on New Media, Mr. Felix Ofo, disclosed this at a press briefing in Asaba on Tuesday, saying that Governor Sheriff was running a transparent administration that had nothing to hide. He also was flanked by Governor Sheriff's Executive Assistant to the Governor of Media, Mr. Norbert Chiazo, and Senior Special Assistant, New Media, Mr. Dennis Otu, revealed that at the end of 2023, an operating balance of the sum of 205 billion naira was also left in the coffers of the state government for the execution of developmental projects, some of which he mentioned. He reiterated that the governor had embarked on massive human and infrastructural development across the state, and he noted that the reality is that he has not borrowed money, not even once since he came into office. And if he, the governor, inherited a debt of 465 billion naira and by March he paid 130 billion naira, common sense tells us that before he leaves office that the debt would have been wiped off, saying that the governor could not be accused of mismanagement of funds and all of that. So, you know, generally, I would just like to get your thoughts on this story. Chief Lucky Man.
Well, these are politicians talking anyway. If the governor says he has not borrowed money, we are waiting until he leaves office when the next government will come. Then we are going to know if he actually borrowed money. We understand that the former governor, most governors borrow, take loans from banks here and there, and most of these monies that they borrow just so they can loop them back into their private coffers and act as if they were actually spending on projects in the state. Leave the state indebted for other, governors to come and begin to pay their debts. So if he's claiming today that he has not borrowed and is paying off debts, fine. We are also aware that what as a governor is receiving today from this thing,
Federation account.
Yes, from Federation account, is way more than what the former governor actually received. Cross-board everywhere. So they are receiving more. Local governments are receiving close to a billion now, 700, 800 million on a monthly basis, as against 120, 130, 150, 180 million for now. So he has money to spend. So since the state is owing, he should pay off the debt and then let the states come back alive so that they can actually go into other
areas of development. Dr. John.
Remember that Delta State is one of the most highly indebted states. Reason being that the former governor was running mate to Atiku Abubakar, and so much money was spent to bankroll the election. Remember, yes. So remember that the governor now was the speaker of the House of Assembly at that time. So when he says he met a huge debt, so he's aware. It's part of the conspiracy. Yes, because no money can be, deployed or disbursed or approved without the House of Assembly is aware. Maybe it was in an attempt to cover up some of these debts. I'm told in the case of River State, it was in an attempt to cover up some of these things, that whatever we are seeing actually happened. So the same thing goes for Delta State. The governor is aware of how they borrowed, how they emptied the treasury, and how they borrowed so much money, took so much money from the bank loans.
Don't you think that's why he's paying back?
That is why he's paying back. So he should not make a statement that he met a very huge debt and so on. He was part of that debt. He was part of those who approved the borrowings of the Okowa administration.
Is it possible to run a government without borrowing at all?
With minimal...
It's beginning to look like you have to borrow if you have to be in leadership to make sure that the state is, okay and everything is running smoothly.
No, you can, depending on... See, much of what they are borrowing is to fund their greed, the greed of these politicians. So many of them live a seditious lifestyle. So many of them have property here and there, even offshores, in Dubai, in London, in America, and so on. So part of the borrowing is because of financial recklessness on the part of these governors and public office holders. It's not as if they are borrowing to, they are tying their borrowing to projects people can see.
But there's always a name to it.
That is the corruption we are talking about. That is the official corruption. Remember, in the Kogi state, the governor was also borrowing. After borrowing 20 billion, he will say, we are using this amount of money to do so project. The project will be left undone, and the money will be funneled into his personal pocket to buy property and so on. So much of, more than 70 to 80% of this money the state governors borrow is borrowed to fund their ostentatious lifestyle, is borrowed to fund their greed. And that is why even at the federal level, we are saying that this idea of the present federal government has borrowed in 1 year, they have borrowed more than what Buhari borrowed in 3 years. Yes.
The economy, reports have it that the economy is in the worst shape it has ever been.
Yes, it is in the worst shape it has ever been.
If the economy was better at a point and then borrowing was still made, how do you think it will be when the economy is this bad?
And that is why we are saying that even, you see, let's not even go to some places. So in the case of Delta State, we are aware that the governor was part of those who approved the borrowing. So it should not feign ignorance. It should know that he will equally borrow. In the case of the white, is it White Lion or so, Yahya Bello, yes. I think it's on the run. Yes. When they told him that, look, what you are doing is bad, he said, no, it's a White Lion. Nobody can intimidate him. Why is he on the run? He's seeking asylum in Niger Republic. Let him stand and fail. Get him arrested and shot that he's prosecuted and jailed so that people will learn from it. We from Bayelsa State, we tried it first. We are the first people to send our governor to jail and got him impeached. They should also follow, other states should follow that example. We are just, we have taken that as a classic example. When you borrow unnecessarily, you steal money unnecessarily, package you for jail, Kuje prison. That's all.
Well, you asked the question if any government can run without borrowing. Yes, government can run without borrowing, definitely. You see, Nigeria is so blessed, our states are so blessed that if we begin to harness what we have been blessed with, if we really want to work, we can generate incomes here and there. Okay, River State, without being, paid money from the federation account, we can actually survive. Because our IGRO in this state can cater for the civil servants and also do some projects. So whatever is coming from the federation account is just like something that is just like an addition to ensure that the government do more jobs. But are they actually doing these things? This is a state where people just come because there is excess money. There was a governor that at a point in time spent and said, look, this is, you took money and went to the federal government. This is the remaining money that I spent. So our states can actually function without borrowing money if they are productive, if the governors and those that they engage to help them run these states have that productive mindset. Then they can begin to go into various sectors that will be productive, that will generate more income for the state without them borrowing. Okay, if you borrow and you invest it in the state into a productive venture and it begins to yield, what you have invested that money into will naturally pay off the debts and it will stand and becomes a benefit to the state. But that scenario is not seen anywhere in Nigeria. Our governors borrow to fund their in a very expensive lifestyle. They live a life as if they are demigods on earth, and at the end of the day, they leave the masses in poverty. Okay,
so from your thoughts and the thoughts of Dr. John, you actually are on the same page concerning feeling or thinking that some of our governors borrow for their personal interest. Now, does it mean that the people do not have the right to hold these people accountable? In cases where nothing is said and nothing is done from the side of the people when things like this are happening?
I'll tell you something. River State is one of the only states where if I become governor today, I can loot as much as I want to loot, and when I leave office, you cannot prosecute me.
Why do you say so?
Because there is an injunction that stops you from coming close to me. So, you're asking the masses, what do you expect the masses to do? You go to court, there's a blockade. They tell you, no, we can't prosecute. because there is an injunction from the Supreme Court that you can't prosecute these persons. So they do whatever they want to do and they leave. No one questions them. So until issues like that are resolved and those blockades that are there are taken off, then people can begin to say, okay, Mr. Governor, so month you borrowed so amount. You say you wanted to use for this. Can we see the books? What you use it for? You have to be accountable to us.
All right, in 1 minute, Dr. John.
It's very obvious. We can do without borrowing. It is those I think about 2 months ago, the Federal Minister of Finance released a report on how governors, run their states, especially recurrent expenditure, monies spent on travels and so on. So we can avoid some of those things, cut down on expenses, reduce the cost of governance by reducing travels. All this, I'm traveling to so place to sign an MOU. You don't need to go with the whole community. You don't need to go with 20 members of your cabinet. If it is a ministry concerning agriculture, the agri minister, the agri commissioner, one other person, that is okay for the trip. After all, the signature is not every person's signature that will be there. So we can cut down on expenses and reduce borrowing, especially dead weight loans. That is what we are taking. We take loans to fund travels. We take loans to fund parties, birthday parties, burial ceremonies. This is uncalled for.
All right, let's look at the next story now.